How the hell is beer made? Welcome to the inaugural episode of Brewing 101, brought to you by Great Fermentations. Excited to talk to you guys about how beer is made, get into the process. This first episode will be pretty basic, so a lot of you home brewers or brewers in general may already know a lot of this, but please watch to the end to help the algorithm. There's four main ingredients in beer. You got your water, your yeast, your malts, and your hops. Each one of these ingredients plays a pivotal role, and I'm going to get into each one of those. Water's pretty obvious. I don't think I need to get into that. It's like 90% of the beer. Yeast is pivotal for fermentation. Let's talk a little bit about fermentation. Fermentation is the chemical breakdown by either yeast or some kind of microorganism or bacteria. When we're talking about alcohol, fermentation is generally the breakdown of sugars into alcohol by yeast or bacteria, normally yeast. With beer, that sugar comes from the malts. So as a brewer, we're starting with our water, soaking the grains at a specific temperature to get the sugars out of it that we want. This process of extracting the sugar from the grains is what we call mashing. The next step is to remove the wort from the grains or the grains from the wort. This is referred to as lautering. Essentially, you're just separating the liquid from the grains itself. Once we've extracted the sugars, we have what is referred to as a sweet wort. This is just sugar water without any hops or anything else added yet. The next step then is to boil this sweet wort. And this is when we add the hops. There's a lot of misconception about what hops are from people who don't know a lot about beer. They don't add any kind of alcohol or do anything that gets you drunk in any way. They are simply there to add flavor and bitterness. Their main purpose is the bitterness. It's to balance the sweetness from that sweet wort so that the beer is not overly sweet. Adding hops at different times can also add aromas and flavors of different kinds. There's hundreds of varieties of hops that have all kinds of different flavors, floral to citrus to earthy, just adding more flavor and complexity to your beer. So you finished your mash cycle, you've lautered, you boiled your wort for probably an hour or so. All that's left is fermentation. So the next step is to rapidly chill this wort that was just boiling down to an appropriate temperature for whatever yeast strain you're going to use for fermentation. If it's too cold, the yeast might be dormant and do nothing. If it's too hot, the yeast will be stressed out, make off flavors, or even die if it's really too hot. So you really want to have it in that range. It's a pretty big range, it's not complicated, usually around room temperature, but the temperature is important. Once you have it cooled down to an appropriate temperature, you're going to put the wort inside of a sanitary fermenter. Sanitation is probably the most important part of brewing. If you let any other bacteria or yeast, other than the brewer's yeast that you intend to ferment with, it's going to make crazy off flavors and just not be a good beer probably. So you add your yeast to the wort. This now, technically, by definition, has become beer because it has all four ingredients now. And then you hermetically seal it to an extent because you don't want oxygen or outside air inside of it, but you need to be able to let air come out. This is very important because fermentation does not only make alcohol, but it produces CO2 and it makes a lot of CO2. If you're not letting that gas out, your fermenter will explode. Generally, fermentation starts anywhere from about 4 hours after you pitch the yeast to maybe a day after you pitch the yeast, sometimes 2 days. Depends on the health of the yeast and several other factors. Once the fermentation starts, it generally lasts for anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. Once it's done fermenting, you basically have a finished product. All that's left is to package it and to carbonate it. Some people package it into bottles. They might do a natural carbonation by adding just a little bit more sugar in each bottle, allowing the fermentation to carbonate the beer naturally. Some people put their beer into kegs, which I do, and force carbonate using a CO2 bottle. You can also naturally carbonate in a keg as well, by the way. If you use a keg, it doesn't mean you have to force carbonate. Depending on the style of beer, you might want to leave it packaged for several weeks to several months, even up to a year. The last step is just to enjoy it. You drink that beer and think, man, I made this. Such a great feeling. Clearly, there's way more information about the process of brewing than what I've talked about today, but I didn't want to get too deep into the woods today. I just wanted to be very basic on the topic. I will get more into detail with future videos about each individual process and nerd out a little bit with you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please follow me for more. Like it if you love it. Leave some comments and feedback. Remember to shop at Great Fermentations to get these ingredients that I've talked about and make your own batch of beer. Thanks for watching.